How's it going, guys? Today we're going to go over a quick video on how we actually incubate Boyd's Forest Dragon eggs. Now, my pair here have just laid a couple of clutches like they do every season. They're doing absolutely amazing and pumping out eggs like always. Now, when it comes to incubating Forest Dragon eggs, we're going to need a couple of things. First is some sort of box for the eggs to actually sit inside. I like to drill a couple of little holes around the edge just for a bit of air exchange. From there, we need some media for the eggs to sit on, so we have some sphagnum moss. This stuff is great for holding moisture, but not causing any mold or fungus, anything like that. It holds back everything really well. And of course, we need an incubator. So what I use is an old wine fridge, and I set it to about 18 degrees in this one's case, because when I've temped it, it'll actually sit between 19 to 22 degrees, which is perfect range for incubating Forest Dragon eggs. So if you don't have a wine fridge, you can put them in a cool part of the house, in a cupboard, somewhere where it's going to stay low 20s in temperature. So in setting up my incubation container, I typically fill it right to the top with some dry sphagnum moss, and fill the whole container with water, let it all absorb, drain out all the water, and then rinse out all the sphagnum moss from all the extra moisture. So you really want to squeeze out as much moisture as you can from that moss, and what's left over will be a perfect substrate for the eggs to sit in. It's quite important for the eggs to be sitting in a high humidity environment, but you don't want them to be totally soaked and saturated in too damp of a medium. So once your moss is ready to go, I like to leave a bit off to the side so we can cover the eggs later, and the rest of it make a nice flat sort of bed right on the bottom of the container that we can place the eggs on top of. Once your container's ready to go, grab your digging tools, let's go find some eggs. Now, I believe this mama actually laid down in this back corner here, so this is where we're going to start to have a bit of a dig around. So we finally reached our eggs, and now the important thing when we remove these eggs is that we don't actually roll them. The embryo actually attaches right to the top of the egg, so if you roll it, it'll actually drown in its own fluid. So you want to make sure the orientation always stays the same. So just gently pick them up and out, try and dust off any excess substrate, and then we can pop it down in our egg box. Now the good thing about the moss is that it's quite soft, so you can kind of dig them into it a little bit and make it a bit more stable. But it's pretty much as simple as that. Keep that orientation, pop it in there like that, and you can do that for all the rest. Now, I think that might be the last of our eggs. We've got 10 in total. I'm just going to have a quick little dig to make sure I haven't missed any. It looks pretty empty to me. So that's a fairly average clutch size. This is actually 2 clutches. I left them in there after the first clutch, and she laid another right on top of them. So she would have had about 5 in each clutch. They can, go up to 6 or 7 potentially. But there is one egg over here that has started to go a little bit moldy, so that tells me it's probably infertile and it's not going to make it. I might leave it in and see if it will actually go full term, but more likely than not, probably just going to collapse and end up being infertile. But all the rest look absolutely amazing, especially some of these more fresh ones. They're really white. After a little while in the soil, they start to stain a little bit. Now from here is where our extra moss actually comes into play. So in order to make sure these guys don't roll and be extra secure, you can actually just break off little bits of the moss and place it in between, and it really just sets them in place, makes sure they're not going to go anywhere, and obviously keeps them apart from each other as well. Now you want to make sure there is a decent bit of space between each egg, because as the incubation process goes on, they'll take in more fluid, more oxygen, etc., and they'll actually start to grow. Reptile eggs have a leathery shell, and they actually swell over time before they hatch. So If they're too close together, they'll grow into one another, and you're better off having a bit of space there to allow for that. Now with the rest of our moss, we can actually just throw it on top to hold in more of that humidity and cover up those eggs a bit. And then we are good to go and incubate. So here's my incubator. Like I said, it's just a basic wine fridge. And we'll literally just sit them right in there and close it up. Now these eggs are quite hardy, so you only need to check on them periodically, make sure the moss hasn't dried out too much. I usually just give it a bit of a spray with some water if it has, and the eggs should do really, really well. Now incubation times for these eggs can vary considerably, and I typically find that clutches laid at the start of the season take much longer to incubate than ones later in the season. So my general rule of thumb is if an egg looks good, viable, healthy, it's growing, leave it alone, it'll hatch when it's ready. So there you have it guys, there's a bit of an update on the forest dragons for you, seeing what they're up to, same as always really. I hope you learn a bit about incubating their eggs. It is a little bit different to a lot of other Australian agamids and other lizards that lay eggs. But yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next time.